So just to let everybody know, my name is Kaska, and I'm a blog and carbon conversation coordinator for Plant, which is people learning about nature in Tayport, which is Tayport Community Trust Group. We run the Tayport Community Garden, and we are part of this loose collaboration with other people for this online workshop series, which we really put together in response to lockdown. And other people involved was St Andrew's Transition Edible Campus, Ninewells Community Garden, and Strathkinness Community Garden, and other guest speakers. And today we've got Helena from Ninewells Community Garden, who will help with managing the Q&A session. And our presenter today is Peter Christopher, who is our community gardener, and he's waving at us. Peter, would you like to unmute yourself so that we can hear what you're saying? And I'm just going to let him take it forward and maybe introduce yourself a little bit and introduce the garden a little bit. And there you go.
Hi everyone, on this rather dreich day, there's a good Scottish word for our non-Scottish visitors. Basically it's cold and damp for June, it's really quite chilly, but it's really badly needed because we've had severe drought and quite a lot of heat, so you can almost hear stuff growing now. I'm here with my wife, Kirsty.
Hello.
And she's operating the filming, and between us both, we do 5 days a week in the community garden. And Ali is our volunteer coordinator, and she helps to get everyone together because we could not do this without the use of our volunteers, who under these present circumstances have been clamouring to get out there and do some stuff to get their hands dirty. Right, for those of you who haven't been to this garden before, it's a fair size, and we do mostly raised beds because it has a history of being really quite damp. In fact, what you can see on the other side is the remnants of an old curling pond. So consequently, part of the solution has been to build a willow tunnel, and that takes a lot of the moisture out of the ground. So, onto the plants. In no particular order, we'll work our way down the garden, selecting various types of vegetables and how to look after them when they're young. The title says looking after your seedlings, but there's a bit of leeway here and there. So we'll start with our cucurbit patch. Now, cucurbit is the generic name for anything like pumpkins, squashes, courgettes, cucumbers, melons. And these outdoor ones we've got are really quite young yet. And these are Turk's turban and summer squashes. Now, the reason that we grow them underneath one of these barrier methods is because we've got a lot of really lovely homemade compost in here, and each year we top it up, but unfortunately it is quite prone to having weed seeds through it. So that's really just to give the chances for the plants not to have too much competition from the weeds. Now then, come down this way. And again, apologies to everyone who's been a gardener for years and is like being taught how to suck eggs, but earthing up potatoes, for anyone who's starting to grow potatoes for the first time, is an operation that's really quite essential for the successful growing of potatoes. For one thing, these ones have already been done, and in the process of earthing up, which more or less just been scraping the earth up on top of the potato, not only does it get rid of some of the weeds for you, but it encourages side stolons, which are little underground runners, to set, and they've got much bigger surface area in which to form the young tubers. And the other thing about earthing up is that you're also stopping them from being exposed to the sunlight, which can make them go green, and that in itself forms a toxic alkaloid, which is not good. So green patties, blue. For anyone who's just growing them on a small scale, off-cut buckets are a good idea. Not amount of space, you grow them in any decent soil, And the earthing up process will just mean that you keep topping up the potato until you doesn't mind if you cover the foliage a little. So on to more veg. These are little baby turnips, the purple top Milan. And the thing about sowing anything like this, which you sow in situ, is that try and be very careful to sow as thinly as possible so that there's less need for sowing. And in certain crops, like the small small turnip and little beetroot, is that you don't have to have a vast amount of space between each plant, because these will essentially push each other out the way as they swell to get to the ultimate size. We've got 3 beds of carrots here. And the thing about carrots is that in this particular season coming up is the season of the carrot root fly. Now these flies, they can fly in from quite a distance from the places where the wild carrot families are growing, and they come in for the easy pickings of your carrots. And so we use this environmental fleece to cover them with. Now, carrot seeds are so small that it's inevitable that you will sow slightly too thickly. So that's when it comes to thinning out. These carrots have had their first thinnings, and they're still quite close together, but you can give them a second thinning and eat the small baby carrots, which are delicious, and then leave the rest of them to form your main crop. These are ones that have to be dealt with yet, and so there's a process of weeding as well as the thinning to do. But beware, if you can possibly do this on a still day.
Elena says, do you eat the baby carrot leaves too?
I've not done that. Is it nice, Lena?
She's muted.
I like the leaves, but I was just wondering if you ate them whole. I was meant to be for at the end, but it was a question.
Okay,
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, I was going to say that the one thing, try and do this on a still day, because the exocet missiles that are the carrot root flies will zoom in from whichever the direction of the wind is heading and come straight to your carrots. Now, you don't have to have these hoop systems like this. You can, in fact, just lay the horticultural fleece or the EnviroMesh straight on top of the carrots. But the one caveat I'd have about that is that if you get strong winds and this stuff is doing this, then it can damage the young seedlings. So that's why we raise them off the plants. Another young crop, which is actually quite a tricky one in that it takes quite a long time. We have to sow our leeks in February under heat in Scotland. You can sow them directly into the ground, but in order to get decent sized leeks that will be overwintering and last you all winter, earlier the better. So in February we sow them in pans, and when they get to about this size, make a deep hole, drop the leek in, and that looks like it's actually a wee bit too deep. Whereas in fact, once the soil's backfilled and watered in, they grow up beyond that. And this basically ensures that you get a long, nice stem of blanched leek. Young leeks, probably still available, although I've been finding on getting in touch with garden centres that a lot of the distributors are running out of young plants. So, here we have young celeriac. and they in fact can be prone to attack by carrot root fly, which is in fact the same family as carrots. But in my experience, celeriac, the roots are so knobbly by the time the root fly is about that they don't do much damage at all. Because by the nature of celeriac, you've got to peel so much off in order to get the nice bit of vegetable. Onions and garlic, fairly easy peasy. The one thing I would say about spring onions is try and grow them in rows, because when it comes to weeding, if you've got the weeds in between the rows, you can see where they are, and so you can use a small hoe. If you've got them in a big bunch, it's really quite difficult to weed them. Now, we'll dash on to the pea and bean family. These are our broad beans, and I see that the bumblebees have been at them already, which is really good. The thing to look out for in young broad bean plants is the very tip of the growth are quite susceptible to a thing called black fly, which is a kind of aphid. And if you see this at the very tip of a broad bean plant, you can just nip them out or squash them with your fingers. And moving on to the peas. You can use old twigs from spruce, dead twigs, to form a wigwam for young small pea plants to climb up. But if you're wanting to grow the likes of mange tout and sugar snaps, you should really have a larger structure. In order to keep the pigeons off, because the pigeons love the young seedlings as they're coming through. This, in fact, they don't like walking under nets because they don't have a quick method of escape. Another thing you can do to protect young plants is to use these small cloches. Have your plants underneath them. Once they get to a certain height, the pigeons don't seem to do much damage. Young runner beans, obviously, by their very nature, need support. So strong, stout canes, and then occasionally giving them a little bit of help to climb is a good idea too. Now, the next big family of plants are the brassicas, and that's Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli, etc. And for these, we make these rather large hooped protective cages. This isn't just to keep the pigeons off, because netting would be enough for that, but this is to keep the cabbage white butterflies off. Last year we had a heck of a problem, and so this year we think we've got it pretty good, and we're fairly confident that none are going to get in, but we'll see what happens there. If you're not growing on this scale and you're maybe wanting to just grow one or two young plants, then we've mentioned this in a former webinar of maybe pushing a couple of holes in here for a cane to go through, and then putting it over your young plant, and it just protects them for that small amount of time whilst they're small in order to get their roots established. After that, you can use the horticultural fleece or the tunnels or the mesh. So it's actually not too bad in terms of the rain now, but we'll go into the polytunnel and do indoor crop protection. I'll stand here. If you have tender plants that you want to grow outside, it's a very good idea to go through a process of hardening off. Now, one of our volunteers, Matthew, has made this cold frame from upcycled wood and old reinforced glass. And so we put the young plants in here, and then you can, when it's a cold night, like when we get to night, we can take the support off and keep them snug and warm overnight. Welcome to the polytunnel, and there must be at least a 10-degree difference in heat from outside, which is why we obviously grow on our tender crops So for example, we've got tomatoes, all different varieties, interspersed with young basil plants. And then just a word about taking care of young tomato plants. Basically, you have two different types, bush and cordon, or determinate and indeterminate. The cordon tomatoes need to be grown up a single stem. And the way that we do this is that when we're planting them, we plant a piece of this jute string, strong stuff in with them. And as they grow up, we support the plant by wrapping them round. Now, these are the side shoots. Now, these come out and should be nipped back. Simple as that, job done. Word of caution, some people are allergic to the sap of tomatoes, so beware. The indeterminate ones, the bush ones, they want to go straggly everywhere anyway. And so they're good for growing in a large container to tumble out. I think the most popular variety is one called tumble toms, which in this case we're growing in a hanging basket. Other plants that you might want to grow in a greenhouse or polytunnel space, or if you're very lucky in a warm south-facing garden, are the French beans. And we've grown them in used toilet rolls and then planted them just straight in. These are the dwarf ones, these are the climbing ones. And we're using this system called the Three Sisters, which is planting beans with the squash family and also young sweet corn plants. Now, there's not an awful lot else to do in here apart from perhaps, if you see that the courgette or zucchini is trying to set foot at this young stage, just cut them off because we want that plant to establish a very good root system. And as anyone who's grown courgettes knows, turn your back on them and they're trying to turn tomatoes. So there's no problem with the amount of plants and fruits that you're going to get. Someone was mentioning growing peppers in pots earlier on. And here's a young sweet pepper that we grew, probably started this up in March in our propagator. And then that's being a hot windowsill, sunny windowsill would be just as good. And when they're getting to the stage whereby the roots are going round and round inside the pot, the perfect opportunity to move them on, or else you'll start to see symptoms of starvation, which can be a bluing and yellowing of the leaves. Don't be tempted to pot into a huge pot when you are moving them on. This size here, for example, will probably be our end size for growing them onto fruiting size. Now, the other thing that we've got to consider about looking after young plants is what's going to try and attack them. We've already seen what we do with the outside plants, but for the indoor plants, there are a range of pests that might come into your growing space and cause harm to your young plants. And so in this case, we're demonstrating a couple of methods that we can use. And one is to make up a solution of soft soaps. Now, these are soaps that are based more on potassium as fatty acids rather than soap that you have in your bathroom. It comes in a tub of concentrate, which you add to a little bit of really hot water in order to melt it, and then make it up into a solution that must get a new sprayer. You can spray onto the undersides of leaves because really that's where the main amount of pests like aphids and whitefly and other things like that tend to be. Just on the first sign of whitefly, you can get one of these going. I'm going to set this up for the
Just pulled it out of my pocket.
after. These are the sticky traps. Sticky traps, which are really good for whitefly, but it says it can catch blackfly, greenfly, flies, midges, and other flying insects. Really, try not to use them on an outdoor setting because there's a lot of beneficial insects out there. For example, ones that will attack aphids, little tiny wasps, parasitic wasps, so you don't want them stuck. But if you do want to use bugs to fight bugs, there's a fantastic old expression, is big bugs have smaller bugs upon their backs to bite them, smaller bugs have tiny bugs, and so ad infinitum. With this food chain in a wonderfully humorous sentence, with fingers over it. So there's a range of various things that you can do. Red spider mites and other things like that. Physical things you can do is to keep up a very nice moist environment. So growing young plants on the windowsill in a pot tray of pebbles helps to keep the humidity of the plant when growing. The other thing is to introduce biological control systems. These are available mail order, and the Phytocereus, which is the one that fights red spider mite in particular, is particularly good. Right, probably having missed out one or two things that we meant to say, we'll go on to the Q&A now, if that's all right with you, Andrea.
Hello, it's Helena who's going to be doing the question and answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the questions that have been asked during the presentation and offer people to ask their own questions, or I can happily read them out for you if you would prefer. So our first question is from Carrie Diaz. I'm very new to growing anything. I only have a small balcony. Oh, sorry, Carrie, do you want to read that yourself? Carrie, no.
Yeah, I can't actually see my question anymore. Can you probably be if you've got it there.
You can scroll up in the chat. You should still be able to see what's there.
Well, I can't remember what I wrote. So I've just got a small balcony space and sort of windowsills, so I can only grow in pots. And I've been growing tomatoes that are going really well, but I was wondering if now I've got the bug, is there anything I could start now that would be quite, have I missed any opportunities?
In terms of the plants like tomatoes, like peppers, chilies, aubergines, etc., yeah, you'd have to get young plants.
Right.
Push it.
And
Push it and get away.
yeah, that's the point. It depends. Courgette in a large pot in the balcony would do well.
That'd be good.
Not too late to sow them. Obviously, you've got outdoor plants which grow fast, like cut and come again lettuce and radish and things like that, and even small carrots, not the main crop carrots. Things like Paris Market and Rondo would be good. So if you've got the space to have large pots, you can certainly still grow stuff.
That's great.
You could even get some supermarket herbs and pot them on.
I've got lots of herbs, herbs and tomatoes is what I've got. I just wondered if there's anything else I could, now that I'm really enjoying it. So,
are you in Tayport at all?
I'm in Dundee.
In Dundee, well, we've got one or two plants left over from our plant swap of chili. We could give you a chili and an aubergine if you wanted to have a go at that.
Cucumbers.
Can you get to Tayport?
I could do, yeah, that would be no problem.
Well, we're here Sunday afternoon if that's available.
Yeah, I could do that. That would be great.
Could you do beans in pots, runner beans, or spring onions are quick from seed because they don't need to mature too much, but those could be grown in pots.
That would be great.
What about dwarf beans, dwarf French beans?
Yeah, that would be the business. Yeah. I've been inquiring, and some of the outlets are completely out of young plants now. The distributors didn't know how much to grow considering the uncertainty of the coming season.
Mm-hmm.
So growing from seed is probably your own option, the only option apart from maybe trying to blag some plants off people. You can certainly come and get some from us.
And there seems to be a few swaps on the Grow Dundee Facebook page as well, people offering plants.
Right.
Oh, I haven't been on there. I'll look at that.
That's a top tip.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I put in the next question, so I'm going to ask it. I was wondering if anyone else had tried treating the side shoots that they take off their tomatoes.
Never tried it. Never needed to.
It's probably very easy, Helena. You've obviously done it before because.
I've just done it for the first time this year, so I don't know what the answer is. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the bottom of a tomato plant, once it gets established, you'll see these little things called adventitious roots, which are little bulges, which if you covered them up with soil, would actually make new roots. So they're obviously very keen to make new roots. If a tomato fell over, it would probably root into the ground.
I think, June, did you say something later on? I didn't quite catch it. Did you try that already?
Yeah, I've got some plants that are taken from the shoots. I've not got any flowers yet. Do you think they'll come up with some flowers here? I mean, it could be just the weather, or maybe I've not got them in the right area.
They might just need to get big enough before they're ready to flower.
Yeah.
Sometimes depends how early you started them off as well.
Right, right. Yeah, right enough. It's only been a couple of weeks, so maybe I'm just being too impatient.
And I was asking all the questions because I wanted to know what the pollination was like for your courgettes in the polytunnel, because I noticed the courgette that you didn't cut off was going slightly yellow, and that to me usually means it hasn't been pollinated and it's not going to grow into a proper courgette.
Yeah, there's even a better example of that on the plants. I think that's because they were mollycoddled in here, and yeah, and it's only we do, you know, we drop the sides and open the doors, and the pollinators find us in here. We had a bumblebee on this nice flower arrangement.
Oh, lovely.
So yes, we've got lots of flowers in containers on the outside of the polytunnel, and we tend to find that the bees get their own way out. They don't get trapped.
Okay. But that is something to be aware of. If your courgettes aren't developing properly, it might be that they've not been pollinated for anyone who's growing courgettes for the first time.
That's where a paintbrush comes in handy. You can make buzzing noises as you do it. If you really want.
That's optional.
Yeah.
Jill Dennis, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, so I'm very new to, can you hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very new to this growing plants. I've just got my first raised bed and things, and people have given me lots of plants. So I just wanted to ask about the tomatoes. So you had, I was going to put those, I don't have a greenhouse, I was going to put those by the window in a big in a big tray thing. So you said about tying strings to the top of them. How do I know which ones need strings tied onto them?
Right. Have you still got the seed packet?
No, they were. I've just been given a whole load of plants, so they weren't seed packets. I've got young plants. I'm about to plant them after today's webinar. So I don't really know. Some of them might have names on, but. Oh,
well, if you can find out if they've got their names on and then look them up, they'll tell you whether they're cordon or bush.
Okay.
And I would have said that in a windowsill or a small balcony,
yeah,
you're probably better with the bush types.
Right.
Raised up so they can tumble over. I was talking about the tumbling ones.
Yes, because I've got what I've got, so I'm not sure what I've been given. So if I look them up and I could maybe tie them towards the ceiling on string. Is that what you need to do?
Yeah, or put a cane in.
Oh, okay.
Tie them to the cane.
Okay. So my second question was about tying. Will I know? Do you take all the side roots off then? So it's literally like a one stalk with something on the top, or
one stalk, and then you leave every truss of flowers up until about 4 or 5, and then after that you pinch out the top.
Right, after 4 or 5.
Then, yeah, and this is a separate workshop about how to look after slightly older plants.
Okay, right, got you. Sorry.
No problem.
I'll look that up. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Geraldine Cooper. Would you like to ask a question? Geraldine Cooper, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, I didn't really want to ask it. So
Oh, I can ask it if you want me to.
yeah, just go ahead. Thank
Sure.
you.
Right, so Geraldine found tiny white aphids on a strawberry plant that was given to her. She's used soapy water to kill them. Was that okay to do? That's more or less what you recommended, Peter, was it?
Yes, soft soap.
You just need to have a name.
I'd asked it before you'd answered it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it came out. So the answer was the answer was given afterwards. That was very psychic of you, Peter. Well done.
Chances are that have a really close look, because aphids, like all insects, undergo this process called ecdysis, which basically means they shed their skin to become bigger. And quite often what you see is the little white ones are the shed skins.
Right.
So if you get down on your hands and knees, have a look to see if any of them are green and crawling about. Aphids come in other colours as well, blacks and purples and things, but the white ones are normally the dead skins. So it could be that a predator has come along and wiped out the aphids, and so you'd be wasting your time. So always inspect closely.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so June, it wasn't a question, it was more of the continuation of the other conversation. Are you okay if you said everything you need to say about tomato plants and the flowers? You were, I think it was just a reply you were actually putting in about where they're going to form flowers. Okay, I think you're muted. Right, the next question is from Rod. Would you like to ask a question?
There was two questions, so I'll just run them together. The first one was about whitefly. I've got a corner of a polytunnel, and I've got lots of tomato plants, chili plants, and aubergine plants. The aubergine plants in particular are covered in whitefly. Well, were covered in whitefly, and to some extent on the tomatoes as well. So I've sprayed them with soapy water, and that seems to have helped. And I'd also heard that it's a good idea to intersperse the plants with companion plants like French marigolds and nasturtiums. And I've got access to quite a few nasturtiums. So is it a good idea just to put nasturtiums in between your aubergines and your tomatoes? That's the first one. And the second one was I've got a bit of rust on my garlic plants. I planted them last November, and they were looking really good and healthy, growing away, but they've got the snape things on the top and everything. So it's looking good, but they've now got rust. And some of them were bad, some just a little bit. So I've dug up the ones that were bad, and they're great, they're really tasty, but they're quite small. And I've cut the leaves off other plants that are still looking healthy enough, but they've got a little bit of rust. Is there anything more I should be doing than that?
I would say that at the end of the garlic's growing season, which basically is June, you're going to get yellowing, you're going to get the snapes growing, and so you can maybe count your losses and just dig the lot up. And this is to break the life cycle of the rust, stop it spreading its spores into your soil to create another problem for a future year. So cut your losses, Rod, get them dug up and dried off, should be fine.
Okay.
Just means peeling them's a fiddly thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, but the actual garlic is good. It's really, really tasty.
And companion planting is really quite fine. It's just that it's very difficult to tell what would have happened if you hadn't done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nothing ventured and all that. So I've heard that the African marigolds are good for the whitefly, hasn't it?
Apparently, we've done it.
Well,
We've got nasturtiums.
Nasturtium. The other thing which I've found quite comical is that if you've got quite a bad infestation of whitefly, is to go into your growing space with one of these handheld vacuum cleaners and a stick, and then just bash the plants and whirl the vacuum cleaner about at the same time. And
that sounds like good fun.
yeah, exactly. You can have a fiendish glee and a demonic laugh as well when you do it.
I've got a slight problem in that I'm a vegan, and I'm probably not supposed to be murdering whitefly, but if midge bites me, I do tend to swat it. So I think I might just have to live with my moral dilemma.
Yeah, vegan's a lifestyle, Jainism is a religion.
Yeah.
I wonder if insectivorous plants would help keep down
Which?
any insectivorous plants. I wonder if some of the sticky sundews would help catch some of the white flies, or if the white fly would just attack the sundews.
Well,
We'll have to test and get back.
Yeah, I wonder if Helena's heard anything about the St Andrews insectivorous plant collection has got any bearing on pests.
Well, we did have, when we were growing at the edible campus, the tomatoes, we did have one insectivorous plant in the polytunnel, and they're really good at catching fungus gnats. You know, the little black fly, but I'm not sure about white fly. So it has the sundews seem to be particularly good at that. Okay.
It'd be fun.
Sorry. Did you say something, Peter?
It would be fun.
Yes. Okay, next question. June. Sticky traps. Would you like to ask that question?
Oh, I'm unmute. Thanks, Helena. Yeah, Peter, I was helping someone with a polytunnel, and we put sticky traps up that were really big, and unfortunately a bird got in and got stuck. Have you got any guidance on what you can do to prevent that from happening?
Put the trap in a cage.
Right.
You know, or just make a cylinder out of chicken wire or something, and hang the trap inside that. It's easy to do, and it would stop that ever happening again.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Okay. And Jill, Dennis, you have another question?
I think my question was covered last time. Was it about tomatoes? Well, I can't remember now.
Sorry, it's a rocket seedlings question.
Oh yeah, sorry, rocket seed. I forgot about that one. Yeah, so it was just ready to. So I planted some little rocket seeds, and they're about just under a centimetre tall. And am I meant to thin them out now?
What kind of rockets were they? Wild or salad?
Salad, I think.
What do you reckon, Peter?
He's just gone to get some.
Or prop?
Here's one I prepared earlier. So we just grow them in these little multi-cell things, and we don't bother thinning them out. We just pop them out and put them in your growing space outside and just leave them to get away.
Oh, good.
Just pluck them.
You can then just cut and come again.
Well, mine are nowhere near that big, so I don't need to have to worry then. Just leave them.
They will try and bolt at some point in the season.
Okay, thanks.
But successional sowing is the way to have a plentiful supply.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Fiona McKenzie, would you like to ask your question?
Hello, yes. I actually have two questions. One is, I grew a courgette plant from seed. I grew several, and one of them, the two original leaves were brown on the outside, and then that kind of disappeared. But I just want to know, is that telling me something for the future, or is that just something that happens?
It probably missed out on some watering at some point during the really hot spell, and that sounds to me like leaf scorch. It'll grow out of it again.
Right. Okay, thank you. And the second thing was, people have been talking about whitefly. I don't know about these things, but I found some sort of slightly chalky, it was almost like tiny little piles of chalk on strawberry leaves. Is that connected with whitefly or something else? And should I do something?
That would indicate a really bad infestation.
Mildew.
It could be mildew, but also what happens?
You isolated tiny little white spots, if they're a bit chalky when you put your finger on them.
Okay. If you've got the, if you're not squeamish, you could just take a tiny bit of it and dab it on your tongue. And if it tastes sweet, then what happens is that the aphids and other sap-sucking insects don't excrete actively. They do it passively. So the sugar comes out their back end and then crystallizes. So sometimes
that's suggesting because we couldn't see any aphids, but that doesn't mean they're not there.
Yeah, they might have been and gone.
Okay, so soft soap would be the thing. Just
you can use soft soap as a preventative measure for sure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. I'll have to decide how squeamish I am.
Okay, everyone, we are nearly out of time.
Thank you so much, everybody,
Thank
for
you.
coming. And thank you, Peter, for a wonderful session. Thank you, Helena, for Q&A support. And Andrea was in there as well. So we have another workshop in 2 weeks. It's going to be advertised through the usual channels, Eventbrite and so on. And I will also include it in a follow-up email with a recording of this workshop to everybody that was registered through Eventbrite. So look out for that, and you can book yourself on that. And that one's going to be about different soil types and maybe a little bit about improvement of soils and how you can assess your own soil. And we'll have a hands-on component. So that's very exciting. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. And see you next time, hopefully.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.